Good morning, everyone. Good morning to everyone on live stream. Happy Mother's Day. What an awesome, awesome day this is. It's going to be beautiful. Oh, lighting the candles. I'll have you light them, Chris. Thank you. Oh, it's so beautiful outside. So beautiful in here, looking around at all these beautiful faces. And thank you, Chris, for lighting the candles. I forgot. Yes, thank you. You may. Oh. So as we begin our service today, I would also like to welcome any newcomers here. Or do we have any newcomers today, if you'd raise your hand? I don't see any newcomers. Oh. Well, Carly is our chaplain for today, so if anyone does want private, confidential prayer after service, she will be in the chapel, which is down the hall and around the corner. So for any of you who would like to partake of her wonderful, wonderful gift of prayer for you, please do that. So I invite you to just take a deep breath in and close your eyes and go to that beautiful place inside. In the beginning was the one presence of the undivided and unmanifest, pure spirit of life, light, and love. In its generosity, it shared itself, its consciousness, and its love in the visible form of creation. We acknowledge this presence within us and as us, the creative energy of the divine feminine and masculine, expressing in all our giftedness and creativity. We acknowledge this presence in our companion Mother Earth and in all sentient beings. This universal presence in everything we call the Christ. And we light this candle this morning as a visible reminder of that Christ present expressing in, as, and through us in this present now moment. It is the truth. Let us own it. And I invite you all to stand for our opening song, I Am Alive with the Spirit of God. As we take our seats, I invite you to just take a deep breath and close your eyes and go to that beautiful place inside. Today we are celebrating mothers. And mothers could also be men who were mothers to their children or to grandchildren, nieces, nephews. Maybe you were a teacher and had many students. Well, there's mothering that goes on when you're a teacher. So whoever you are, however you are, each and every one of us has demonstrated that feminine aspect of mothering, comforting, healing, hugging, listening. And so this morning we honor each and every one of you for that beautiful, beautiful aspect that we call the mother. And so on this beautiful Mother's Day, we honor you all. And staying in this place, together we set the intention that as each name on our prayer list is read, that person is bathed in love and their highest good comes to them. And our prayer list for today, we have Joan Smith, Sarah Gordon, Richard Anderson, Mackenzie, Emmy, and Andrew, Sharon Watson, Paul Fling, Walt Watson, Ashley Herbert, for Tracy Sterling and her family, Christine J. and Chris Wesley Rayleigh, for the passing of John Baldwin and his family and friends. All those suffering everywhere, we hold you in prayer. For all those assisting in areas of disaster and trauma, we hold you in prayers of gratitude and love. And at this moment, if there's anyone else that you know that could use prayer, you can softly say their name out loud or just gently to yourself. And we affirm there is only one presence and one power, active as the universe and as our lives, the all-loving goodness of God, and all is well. And staying in this beautiful place, we have the reading of our daily word. It's a blessing for mothers. I bless all mothers with thoughts of gratitude. There's nothing quite like a mother's love, so nurturing, caring, and warm. Today I bless the women in my life who express this love in all they do, whether it's the woman who raised me or any of the other women I know who so generously shared a mother's love. I have felt the care of God through their tender touch and encouraging words. Over the years, I have grown strong and confident under their kind direction and have relied upon their wisdom. The divine feminine flourishes on earth, its loving words and caring hands of mothers and all those who share a mother's love. I bless them and pray they know the love of God as they have shared it so generously with me. And from 2 Kings chapter 4, verse 30, then the mother of the child said, "As the Lord lives and as you yourself live, I will not leave you." And today's meditation is going to be just slightly different. My talk is on Myrtle. And Myrtle Fillmore had several statements that she used over and over in her letters. So I invite you to, one, either look at the PowerPoint and read it, or keep your eyes closed. And we're going to go through these and just spend a few seconds afterwards just taking these into our being. So our first statement is, you do not have a problem except the one that is in your own mind, and you put it there. Another one she used to say is, if we love the truth, we are not afraid. We are bold to put out into the sea of faith. A third one she liked to use is, the trials of today are stepping stones over which you pass to a glorious destiny. A beautiful one that we can say for today, as the sunshine brings out the colors of beauty, so the light of love brings out the Christ virtues in people. So love, love, love. And a very short one is, life is a school. One she used quite often was, God is giving you the needed wisdom and poise and love and sustenance to meet all the requirements. Your part is to believe this and to trust and keep busy with the things that are yours to do without anxiety or concern about what others are doing. Trust God to prompt others to do their part. And of course, one of the first statements that Myrtle ever heard that moved her on her path was, I am a child of God, and I do not inherit sickness. And for faith, keep on praying for faith. It is through prayer that you develop all your wonderful qualities of soul. And finally, remember this: whatever you have done, whatever you contemplate, you are learning lessons, growing, and going forward to a day of light, joy, and freedom. And so it is. And now, if you'll just stay seated, we'll have another song by Gabriel and Angela, If Love Is Why I'm Here.
If love is why I'm here, let me be an open channel. If love is why I'm here, let me give and then receive. Give and receive. Give and receive. If love is why you're here, may If love is why we're here, let us give and then receive. Give and receive. Give and receive.
Thank you. That was absolutely beautiful. And of course, that is the theme for Myrtle, because Myrtle was definitely all about love. So, of course, today's title is Myrtle Fillmore, Mother of Unity. And because it is Mother's Day, this is why I chose to talk about her. So once again, good morning and happy Mother's Day. Myrtle was born Mary Carolyn Page on August 6th, 1845, in Pagetown, Ohio. Her father called her my little Myrtlie, and as she grew, she herself began to use the name Myrtle. As a small child in the afternoon after her chores were done, she recalled that her favorite thing would be to go down by the stream behind the house, lay down on her back on the grass, and just watch the birds that soared up in the sky. And as she watched them, she would find herself up among them, soaring in the sky with them, feeling one with all there was, and then suddenly find herself back in her own body. And in later years, she would make the comment that that was her first introduction to the understanding and knowledge that we are all one. And when she was young, Myrtle attended services at the Methodist Church, but found much of the doctrine was unacceptable to her in her life. Because of her young age, she once wrote that she would simply affirm the truth in her soul and inside denied that part that she could not accept. And most of what she couldn't accept was the aspect of hell and punishment from God being a part of her life on this earth. In her later years, Myrtle wrote that she had always been passionately in love with God and with nature, and every chance she could get, she would go to that stream, and she said, I would soak in the love of God from everything around me. When Myrtle was very young, she came down with what doctors determined to be tuberculosis, and she grew up always hearing about how delicate she was and how she must be protected, how she mustn't overdo anything. And because of that affliction, school and learning became especially important to her. She loved to learn, and she loved to study and to read. And if she didn't understand something, she said she would go to bed at night with a problem in her mind and wake up the next morning just knowing the answer to the problem. When Myrtle completed high school, she moved to Oberlin, Ohio, and enrolled in the literary course for ladies at Oberlin College. And she attended classes there for 1 year because at that time, women were not eligible to attend a regular 4-year college. So once she graduated from the literary course, she was licensed as a teacher. And she was able to obtain a position as a school teacher in Clinton, Missouri. So in 1868, she moved to Clinton and began teaching school. However, her challenges with tuberculosis were increasing more and more. The doctors told her that if she wished to survive, she would have to leave there where the dampness in the cold winters complicated her symptoms. She was advised to move to Denison, Texas, where there was a community for patients like her. And once Myrtle arrived in Denison in the early 1870s, she joined the local Methodist church. Because the doctors had forbidden her to resume her full-time teaching career, she did some private tutoring for students and joined the Denison Literary Club. What Myrtle didn't know at the time was that God had a hand in all of this, because her future husband, Charles Fillmore, was also a member of the Denison Literary Club. Later on in her writings, Myrtle would say that he had told her that when he first met her, something inside of him told him that she was going to be his wife. And she said that it wasn't until years later that she told him, the woman always does the choosing, even though it may only be to insist upon the man living up to her high ideals. But you were splendid, dear, or I wouldn't have chosen you. So when Myrtle was a young girl, she thought that any interest in men would actually detract her from her pursuit of knowledge and her love of God and nature. And although 9 years older than Charles, she later wrote that she recognized that Charles would enhance her devotion to these matters because he shared so many of her interests. She wrote that his spiritual unfolding was in its earliest stages, but she saw great potential in him. The public school in Denison at that time was very overcrowded. So in 1878, when Myrtle felt that she was well enough to go back to full-time teaching, she opened a private school, charging $2 per student per month. And she wanted to give students a chance to learn in not only less crowded conditions, but in an environment where each child was honored for their own qualities and talents. The students that she had thrived and quickly passed their peers that were still in the public schools. However, in June, after the school had only been in operation for 6 months, she announced she would be closing the school and returning to Clinton, Missouri, where she would teach in the public schools. Because the students were doing so well, the parents asked her to teach them her method of teaching so that they could take over and run the school. So throughout that summer, she taught the parents how to run the school and how to teach, and then left Denison for Clinton. She and Charles corresponded during the first years that she had returned to Clinton, and then 3 years later, Charles re-entered her life. In 1880, Charles had been living in Gunnison, Colorado, and as he had established himself with a partner in business, he decided that it was time for him to ask Myrtle's hand in marriage. So on March 29th, 1881, Myrtle and Charles were married. However, because of the financial situation in the country at that time, Charles moved several times, finally moving to Kansas City, Missouri. Life in Kansas City for both Myrtle and Charles wasn't easy. Living in the drier areas of Texas and Colorado had been good for Myrtle. Charles, whose leg had stopped growing when he was a child and had an accident, was having painful challenges with that leg. Myrtle's tuberculosis had flared up, and she had contracted malaria. No matter what the doctors tried to do, they finally told Myrtle that she only had a short time to live. And they talked about moving back to Colorado, but Charles had a dream that told him that they were to stay in Kansas City. In the spring of 1886, Myrtle was told that the end of her life was near. At that time, Myrtle and Charles had been attending every health-centered lecture in the area. One evening, they went to hear a lecturer by the name of Dr. E.B. Weeks from the Illinois Metaphysical College. He had been trained by Emma Curtis Hopkins, one of the foremost metaphysicians at that time, and he made the statement that stayed with Myrtle the rest of her life. You are a child of God. Therefore, you do not inherit sickness. And Myrtle grabbed onto that statement and held onto it with all her might. She had been told all of her life that she had inherited tuberculosis from her parents, that she was born to be ill and to suffer and to die prematurely. So she took this statement to heart. She began to talk to her body and its cells. She told her body that it was a creation of God and did not inherit sickness. Days, weeks, and months went by, and gradually she noted an improvement. She said she closed herself into a room and sat next to an empty chair. She knew that the Spirit of Jesus Christ was in that chair and was supporting her and encouraging her. She studied the 4 Gospels, especially the parts where Jesus spoke of healings. Another thing she heard from Dr. Weeks was, God is your hereditary parentage. Only what belongs to God belongs to you. So by the time Myrtle's healing was complete 2 years later, about 1888, Charles had had the healing of his leg also. And with that, they began to prepare to launch into the spiritual work that became Unity School of Christianity. But Myrtle wasn't satisfied with having her own healing. She wanted to share it with friends and family, and finally she shared it with the world in an article, How I Found Health. That was turned into a pamphlet that's still being printed today. And after some time of meditating together, reading the Bible, and having Myrtle pray with others in the community, they began to study under Emma Curtis Hopkins, who was the teacher of E.B. Weeks. She was involved in organizing the New Thought movement and was a theologian, a teacher, writer, feminist, mystic, and healer who taught and ordained hundreds of people, including notably many women. Hopkins was called the teacher of teachers and mother of New Thought because a number of her students went on to found their own churches or to become prominent in the New Thought movement, including Charles and Myrtle, Ernest Holmes, and many others. Mrs. Hopkins wrote the book High Mysticism, which is still being printed today. And she actually came to Kansas City more than once to actually teach Charles and Myrtle personally. One of the students who studied with Charles and Myrtle was H. Emily Cady, who would, in 1892, begin writing a series of monthly articles for Unity magazine, which was later turned into the book Lessons in Truth, that is considered by many to be the cornerstone book of Unity. In 1889, they decided to start a publishing venture. Charles and Myrtle had decided that it was their time to share the truth that they had found. In April 1889, their magazine, Modern Thought, was printed for the first time. It was a 16-page publication and was labeled as devoted to the spiritual inflation of humanity from an independent standpoint. So after a few months of printing articles from other lecturers and healers, they decided to concentrate more on just articles that spoke of practical Christianity and articles that would emphasize more eternal truths held within the Christian thought of life. They also changed the name of the magazine to Thought, and then later to Truth. And in the spring of 1891, Charles and Myrtle were praying with some other truth students, and the word unity came to Charles. So at that moment, Unity was born. They changed the title of the magazine to Unity Magazine and began publishing from that time on under that title. Because Charles and Myrtle had been studying under Emma Curtis Hopkins for many months, they ended up graduating as ordained ministers in 1889 from the Hopkins Metaphysical Institute of Chicago. And unity then began to take on its own particular identity. Charles and Myrtle took what they considered the best of Christian Science from the teachings of Mrs. Hopkins and blended it with their own personal understanding and knowledge of the writings of Jesus. And although at one point part of the New Thought movement and the International New Thought Alliance, Charles and Myrtle moved away from being associated with them. Myrtle once wrote, "Instead of thinking and saying new thought, it would be better to think and speak God thought. To identify oneself with Jesus Christ's standard of thinking keeps one poised and free and filled with light." So from the beginning of her time of healing, using the words that she had heard from Dr. E.B. Weeks, Myrtle was captivated by the power of prayer that she had not known before. And sharing that power of prayer became her main life's work and dedication. She would hold evening meetings at their home where she would invite people to come and hold others in prayer. In 1890, Myrtle formed the Society of Silent Help, which would later be known as Silent Unity. In December 1892, Charles wrote what was called the Dedication and Covenant. It reads, "We, Charles Fillmore and Myrtle Fillmore, husband and wife, hereby dedicate ourselves, our time, our money, all we have, and all we expect to have, to the Spirit of truth, and through it, to the Society of Silent Unity. It being understood and agreed that the said Spirit of truth shall render unto us an equivalent for this dedication in peace of mind, healthy body, wisdom, understanding, love, life, and an abundant supply of all things necessary to meet every want without our making any of those things the object of our existence. In the presence of the conscious mind of Christ Jesus, the 7th day of December, A.D. 1892. And they did just that. Charles and Myrtle dedicated their entire lives to the unity movement and to bring a much higher spiritual thought and way of living to the masses. But it wasn't to just adults that the unity philosophy was dedicated. One evening, Myrtle had a vision in which a huge crowd of people gathered around her. Many were children, and within herself, she heard a voice ask, "Who will take care of the children?" And just after that, the voice said, "You are to take care of the children. This is your work." And Myrtle felt that the unity philosophy should actually be taught to children from the day they were born, so that they could be raised knowing the truth of who they were, beloved children of God, whole and complete just as they are. Because of that, Myrtle felt that children needed a magazine of their own with stories and poetry, prayers written for children in the way that children could read it. So in 1893, the first issue of We Wisdom magazine was published. And this magazine was actually published until 1991 when it ceased publication. To become more official and more legal as an actual spiritual movement, in 1903, the Unity Society of Practical Christianity was incorporated. And as time went on, Charles and Myrtle wanted to begin teaching others to assist in spreading the unity philosophy. So in 1914, the Unity School of Christianity was incorporated. And as the unity movement and its philosophy spread, more and more people were hearing about the amazing healing work that was being done through the Society of Silent Help. And more letters were coming and requesting prayer help. So Myrtle began dedicating more and more of her time to personally answering each and every letter that came in and writing each person back with thoughts of truth about who they were and about their health, their finances, relationships, whatever challenge they were facing. In 2006, the book Myrtle Fillmore's Healing Letters was published for the first time. And copies of her original writings are in there. So if you want to see how Myrtle wrote, this is a great book to look over. It has the way that she spoke in that book. And as Unity was publishing several different monthly magazines at the time, Myrtle felt that they should have a magazine that could be separated into daily prayers or affirmations that a person could pick up and have something different to read each and every day. So in 1924, the first Daily Word magazine was published. And as we know, it is still being published today. Now, by this time, the first 58 acres that would be known as Unity Farm and then Unity Village had been purchased. And they were developing it into a place where everything could be done on one site rather than in different buildings as by this time they were doing. There were so many letters coming in for prayer assistance that Myrtle felt they should have a place where more people could assist her in answering each and every one of these letters. So construction began to build such a building, and in 1929, the tower and the Silent Unity building at Unity Farm were completed and occupied. Once Myrtle was asked why she was so dedicated to assisting people with their problems and their challenges, and she replied, "It's a matter of individual growth, of learning to draw upon the individual's own inner spiritual resources and make practical use of them." Myrtle was a strong believer in using affirmations. And some of the first words that she wrote that were to be held in silent thought every night for 1 month were these: God is all goodness and everywhere present. He is the loving Father, and I am his child, and have all his attributes of life, love, truth, and intelligence. In him is all health, strength, wisdom, and harmony. And as his child, all these become mine by a recognition of the truth that God is all. In the late summer of 1931, Myrtle came to the realization that her time on this plane of existence was coming to an end. And she began to tell people that she would be passing soon and that they would be taking over the work for her. When asked why she felt she had to leave, she replied, "I believe it would be easier for me to do the work that is ahead by being from the invisible plane." And in the days prior to Myrtle leaving, people noted that she was radiant, peaceful, filled with love. And then on Tuesday, October 6th of 1931, Myrtle made her transition. And she was 86 years of age. So I would like to finish this with a poem that Myrtle wrote for one of the Wee Wisdom magazines. Monday. If you want the good to grow, watch the little words you sow. Tuesday. If you want life's blossoms rare, pull out thoughts that wear and tear. Wednesday. Loving good is always brought into sight through loving thought. Thursday. If you want me to smile, take one with you all the while. Friday. Kind and loving deeds attract and like the echo, come right back. Saturday, what we give, we surely get, love for love and fret for fret. Sunday, the sweet law, dear Lord, I know I will reap the good I sow. So I want to thank all of you for being here today and those on live stream for being with us. I just really have an affinity for Myrtle, and I just really wanted to share with you a very, very, very short synopsis of her life and how powerful she was within the unity movement. So thank you for being here. Thank you. And that brings us to our time for our love offering. So as you take your tithes or gift, your love offering into your hands, I'm going to invite you to hold it over your heart and fill it with the love that resides in you. And please join together. Prosperity flows to us and through us in unending streams of plenty. The inexhaustible resource of spirit is equal to every demand. And now we have special music, A Mother's Love.
My first home was in your room. Thank you for the lovely room. My next home was your home too. And you shared with me, and you cared for me like only a mama can do. No ocean floor lies deeper. No perfume is sweeter, and no gift is given freer than a mother's love. My first steps were at your side, each success fed by your pride. You've always held out a loving hand, and you hold me and form me like only a mama can. No ocean floor lies deeper. No perfume is sweeter, and no gift is given freer than a mother's love. I know sometimes I drive you crazy. Sometimes you drive me there too. But the ties are strong, so it don't take long till the love comes pouring through. No ocean floor lies deeper. No perfume is sweeter, and no gift is given freer than a mother's love. Mother's love. Oh, mother's love. Thank you for sweet mother's love.
Very nice. So we take these gifts out of your beautiful and wonderful generosity. And we know that these will go forward not only to assist unity here in Grass Valley to remain up and going and viable, but for us to also share it with the community and with the unity movement itself. We bless them all. So we have just a few announcements today. Next Sunday at 12:30, we are going to be having a celebration honoring John Martin right here. So if you can plan to stay, that would be wonderful. Our Change for Change recipient for May and June is the Neighborhood Center for the Arts. Our spiritual exploration this coming Tuesday at 10 a.m. We'll have Michael Stone on the spiritual path of trauma. So that's this coming Tuesday. The healing clinic is being held today, but all sessions are filled. However, you can speak to Chris sometime later this week or so. And Chris, would you just stand up real quick so people know who you are? And she'll be making signups for June. Now, there's a very important information regarding hospitality house volunteers. There's an online certification that's now required by California. So if you click on the link in the e-bulletin, it'll take you to their website for more information in the course. And of course, everything that has been mentioned today is in our weekly e-bulletin. And if you would like to receive it and aren't receiving it right now, we do have a sign-up sheet in back for you to sign up there. And one last item that was brought to my attention this morning is yesterday we had a major cleanup day upstairs. And if you drove around the backside, you'll notice there's a lot of stuff out there. So Reverend Jerry called me this morning and said, please have people go through it. If you want anything, take it. Because it's all going to the dump if you don't. So I really want to honor all of our volunteers for today. Our musicians, Gabriel and Angela, thank you so much. Our greeters for today were Bob Foster and Kathy Eville. Our ushers were Linda Bicchetti and Mark Wandrow. Our chaplain, of course, is Carly DePross. Hospitality, our beautiful ladies in the back getting all of our coffee and everything ready to go, are Rhonda Bomar and Heidi Kloffler. Sound today was Greg McCoy, and the wonderful, wonderful lady doing all those PowerPoints for me today is Kelly Garmeyer. Rosie Daugherty was in our bookstore, and our altar today was by Christy and Peter and Mary Jo. And a very happy, special, happy Mother's Day to all. Thank you all for being here today. Thank everyone that's on live stream for being here. Really appreciate each and every one of you. So now if you'll stand, we'll say our prayer of protection. And as usual, when I am up here, at the very end it says, all is well. We are to yell out, and all is wonderful, as loud as you can. So here we go. The light of God surrounds us. I am the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love of God. The power of God protects us. I am the power of God. The presence of God watches over us. I am the presence of God. Wherever we are, God is, because I am. And all is wonderful. Yay, God. And now our song, I Choose Love.
Peace in my life is growing because love be present. It's what we're made of. We choose love. We are all part of each other. We are one. One choice unites us. Let this be the one. We choose love. We choose love. We choose love.
And love is who you are. Thank you all for being here. God bless.